shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Each stage kick, we feel alive, alive. Echoes in the city as the fans arrive. Heart of the motor, in the screen, we're bound together by a football dream. Rise and grind, Detroit is calling out. Yeah, football dreams in every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Hey, feel the unity, the crowd's electrified. There, under the stadium lights, where legends thrive. Every touchdown, we're close to Clark West. In Detroit, we stand. Get down there. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Yeah, football dreams in every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight.
All right, good morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. We're going to get it kicked off on this Wednesday. It is June 11th. I'm your host, Will Rock, and we're going to have a little bit of fun today talking about, well, I don't know if it's really fun, but talking about Terrion Arnold a little bit today and injury updates on Malcolm Rodriguez. And then I'm going to poke some fun here at Jared Goff. And maybe the timetable has started for when Jared Goff is going to get replaced. Now, I've heard a lot of fans talk about they don't want another quarterback in Detroit for the next 3 seasons. I would agree. But something tells me at some point you have to relinquish these big contract numbers and do something with it. So if Jared Goff is building in Detroit and he's building an amazing season, I know you guys would never have thought me saying this, right? At what point do you have to walk away from somebody that has amassed an amazing career and now is getting paid $70 million in 2027 or 2026, excuse me. And now you have to reset the deck. Now that's the scary tune, right? I don't necessarily believe in all of that, but that's the scary tune. At what point do you have to shuffle the deck and bring somebody in that's going to cost you a little bit less? And then there's Terrion Arnold. I saw a article pop out kind of bashing the dude to a degree. And again, it's just this false media or media that I feel is not grabbing the right stats or taking a look at the right stats to kind of paint a picture of what he is, who he was last year, and who he can be this year. So I want to talk about those two things today for sure. This won't be a 2-hour podcast today. I have interviews today lined up for some people that want to join Rockhound Sports Media Group. And we're gonna continue growing. So thank you. Hit that like and subscribe button if you guys haven't already. Would appreciate it. We need to grow. I don't know, 5,000-6,000 this year's probably the goal. The other channels are growing just fine, so we want to get this channel growing even more. So I had some luck a couple weeks ago. Before I get going, some fun stuff here, and this isn't all of them. I got about 50 Detroit Lions cards, and we're going to start doing Whatnot, and we're going to start promoting it here on YouTube. But we're going to start doing Whatnot with football breaks. We'll be purchasing football decks, or boxes, excuse me. And we're going to be doing some football breaks as well as apparel. So we've got a couple of apparel lines, vintage clothing, new clothing. But I came across these cards at Burley Park a couple of weeks ago. We got a Levi Onwuzurike. I haven't never seen these cards before. It's a little dark in here today. Got a couple of Levi's. This one is, I don't know, that one's pretty sweet. There's all different sorts of things going on with it. I got to say, I'm a little out of touch with cards because I haven't done it in so many years. But I jumped into Riley's buddy, Bobby, Ghetto Deals on Whatnot. Great channel. Jumped into that one the other night. Corey joined us too. And just had a good time. And I'm like, I'm missing out on this. Like, why am I not doing this? It's like, I don't care about the money part of it. I think it's just fun. I think it's absolutely fun to be able to rip these packs open and maybe get lucky. So we're going to do it. Hopefully you guys can help promote us. Obviously, we're going to do our best to make sure that prices stay relatively inexpensive. Jared Goff, I got like 10 of these different types of Jared Goffs. You might have received some in your gift bags. You might. I can't even remember which ones I put it in. I was just kind of throwing them in as random. But I've got, I don't know, 50 other cards over there. A lot of Aiden Hutchinson, Jameson rookies. Hey, you know, let me just grab a couple. Grab a couple because they're kind of fun to look at, right? But I got some unique Jameson rookies. Lost my ears. One of these days, I'm going to have to get the wireless ones. But anyway, yeah, more Jared Goffs. And the ones that I really liked were these JMOs, man. These ones I've never seen before, but it has like a lion symbol in the bottom, but it's in his Alabama jersey. Pretty fun rookie card. Now, some of these that I looked up, I mean, they might only be worth $5, $10, or $30. This is a double pack. I don't think this guy realized he gave me two, but there was two different rookies in here. I know I'm doing a horrible job because of the glare on these. Some Barry Sanders were in here. 5, 6 berries. Bunch of Aidens. I know I put some Aiden Hutchinsons in your guys' boxes. I know that for sure. I think someone got a Levi. But a lot of different Aidens. So we're going to start giving these away. I'm not about, collecting them and earning money on it. That's just not my thing. The one that I really liked was when I found this sitting out. All some of the, some of the old guys. Johnny Morton. Who else is in there? Herman Moore, Stephen Boyd, Scott Mitchell, Charlie Patch, Hanson. That reminds me of some good days, but maybe not so good days because we didn't win a lot of football games. All right, let's get off and running. Good morning, everybody. I think I'm just going to break this pack open right away and just kind of rip the Band-Aid off on Terrion Arnold. Why not? Let me get my sheet up. Everybody that had grab bags and that, you should have received an email with your tracking number. Okay, so Terrion, let me start with this article. Let me have this article kind of lead us into, and I'm going to do some of this research live because it was too much for me to get all this stuff prepared with everything I have going on right now. So, article states, and I still think that this is a burner account. Article states that there's high expectations for Terrion Arnold entering this season, and that he had a shaky rookie campaign. I would agree with that. I would agree that he had a little bit of a shaky season last year. But I think when you dig into the guts of what this team went through, it wasn't as shaky as was what some think. 24th overall pick last season, I think a lot of fans expected Sauce Gardner for whatever reason. You guys expected Sauce Gardner. And I'm not saying that he can't be as good, if not better. And then a guy by the name of Cooper DeJean ends up being the number 1 overall rated DB last season. Was that a failure? Did Brad Holmes miss? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think so. That's up for you to decide. But I don't think he missed at all. I think what Terrion did last year was right on pace for a rookie corner. Now, at his first year as a pro, this is what this article states, that Terrion experienced a myriad of issues staying in front of opponents' pass catchers, allowing a 99.2 passer rating on balls thrown his way. Plus, he recorded a lowly 50.4 Pro Football Focus coverage grade and amassed 0 interceptions on 662 coverage snaps. Okay, number 1. How many interceptions did Sauce Gardner have in his first year? Anybody remember? Just curious if anybody remembers. That's right. It was 0. It was 0. But why was it 0? Well, they weren't throwing the ball at Sauce a whole lot that year for whatever reason. They were all worried. Now, Terrion got targeted quite a bit last year. I think it was 76 times, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see here. Why is this not opening up? One sec. Got to look at the key. You can't read the numbers anymore on PFF for some reason. They've made some changes, some good changes. But yeah, I'm looking for the TGT and it's just not staring at me in the face. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, that's kind of a... All right, here we go. Targets. 98 times. I had to make it really small. 98 times he was targeted last season. That's a ton of footballs. All right, that's a ton of passes going at you. I don't know how many corners last season were targeted almost 100 times. The fact that he gave up only a 61.2% reception percentage, that's solid. 61% is solid. Tell me a quarterback that is averaging 61.2% on the year that you want as a starting quarterback. Jay Cruzen, come on now. He says that's 2 less than 100. Good math, buddy. The math is working for you this morning. So 61.2% is that's a really good reception rate. He gave up 792 yards. Let's digest that for a moment. So you're in a defense, number one, that is, I mean, just decimated, right? I mean, there was guys really starting week 5, but week 6, the train kind of fell off the tracks with injuries. We know this. I don't need to beat that dead horse. We know what happened last year. So just think in terms of a ton of injuries, right? And whether it's up front or in the middle, it affects the entire defense. The DBs were largely intact last year up until, the last part of the season, not counting some of the injuries that happened during training camp with, Ennis Rakestraw, some of the guys that really couldn't give it a go last year, but 40 snaps. Tons of injuries. When your defense is playing from a big lead, what did Aaron Glenn do? Was he getting after the quarterback? No, he wasn't dialing. I mean, he dialed up a ton of blitz, but when we have a 15, 20-point cushion, what are we doing? We're not sitting there, chomping at the bit, getting after the quarterback. And I think that's another misconception that Lions fans have about this defense, that they think that this defense can't get after the quarterback. You guys have to take into consideration the offense. If the offense is putting up a boatload of points, and the defense was one of the best defenses in the league against the run and in the red zone, which means teams aren't scoring, of course teams are going to start to pass against you a little bit more. They're playing from behind. And conversely, the Lions defense is playing with a lead. So when teams are passing on you from 20 to 20, I know we spoke about this a ton last year, but from 20 to 20, it seemed like opponents were able to get the ball, downfield 7, 8, 9 yards pretty easily, right? There was a few explosives here and there, but 7, 8, 9 yards, it seemed like they could move the ball, in 7 plays or so and get down to, R20, get into the red zone. And then we shut them down. What I would be concerned about is Terrion giving up a bunch of TDs? What is he doing in the red zone? Is he able to play at a high level when it really matters? Because from their end zone, right, to our 20-yard line, there's really not a whole lot to worry about. I mean, you would need a giant explosive play to beat you for a touchdown, and that just really didn't happen last year. There was a few explosives, and I didn't go look at, how many were over 30, 40, or 50 yards, but it was few. And I know that because I watched every game. So when he gets to the 20-yard line, or the opponent gets to the 20-yard line, Terrion stood on his business. He was probably one of the better corners in the red zone last year. So I'm less concerned. The penalties part of it, I think you need to put this into a vacuum and really understand what he did last season. The first 4 weeks, he got crushed. He had 8 penalties, pass interference or defensive holding penalties. I think you and I and everybody else can agree half of those are really ticky-tacky penalties. I mean, things that would not be called on a veteran, things that wouldn't be called on Sauce Gardner or some of the other players around the league. They just don't call that stuff. But for whatever reason, they were picking on Terrion Arnold. And look, I'm not going to excuse every play because he made some mistakes. But I think if you put it into a vacuum and understand that through 4 weeks, he has 8 penalties and finishes with 10 or 11, I think he had at the end of the season, but 10 that were related to passing. He only had 2 penalties from week 5 through the Commanders game. That is your Terrion Arnold. That is the largest amount of data that you have on that football player is from week 5 through the Commanders game, which was not a good game for anybody. So when you think about that, who is Terrion Arnold to you now? Is he somebody that can play at a high level? He gave up 4 TDs last season. 4. And he never had one game where he gave up 2. And he would go multiple games without giving up a touchdown. So week 2 versus Tampa Bay, he gave up a touchdown. Week 8 versus Tennessee, he gave up a touchdown. 2 weeks later, in week 10, he gave up a touchdown against Houston. And then, 6 weeks later, he gave up a touchdown against Chicago. And then he didn't let up a touchdown for the rest of the season. That's pretty good. I mean, that's really good for a rookie to be able to do that. I think that he was given, I'd have to go back and watch all of the touchdown plays again and kind of look, where were the safeties? What half of the field were they covering? Did he get the help that he needed? I feel like Kirby also kind of let down at times and he was out of place. Didn't defend the back end as good as he should. And I'm sure a lot of you are going to fire back at me for saying that, but that's okay. Just because he was the interception leader doesn't mean that he didn't make mistakes. Just because he was rated as one of the best safeties in the league doesn't mean that he didn't make mistakes. He definitely made mistakes last year. And we'll get into some tape maybe when Corey gets back. I'd like to see if he can put together some Kirby Joseph breakdowns and the good and the bad. And we'll probably do it as a members only video. So I couldn't have expected, just like Derek Lewis said, I couldn't have expected any more from a rookie. You have to take the Sauce Gardners and understand that is so few and far between. So what's going to happen in year 2? I think that there's a lot that's going to happen for him in year 2. The game is going to slow down big time for this guy. Now, last night I had the pleasure of listening to Crunch Time for about 15 minutes, maybe 20. And they were talking about pressure, which this will be a topic when I can get all the guys in to talk about some pressure. And it's kind of been a boiling point for this team that where does the pressure lie? So it's a good topic. It's something that we've been thinking about for a while. And is Terrion under the most pressure? I don't think so. And I think even less so now that we have DJ Reed in the house. Look, Dan Campbell's extremely excited about this DB room. And I've already put it out there that I feel like this is going to be a DB room, might be tops in the league this year if everyone stays healthy. Definitely going to be a top 5. Imagine having a top 5 run defense and a top 5 back end. And that means anything in the middle of that, I'm less concerned about. All right, I'm less concerned about sacks. I'm more concerned about TFLs. But if this DB room can hold, not hold literally, but hold the quarterback, making them pat the ball a little bit, well, that's going to give more opportunity to your defensive ends, which is exactly what you want to do. More importantly, it's going to give more opportunity to your defensive tackles, which we're kind of in a tricky situation with some injuries. We don't exactly know how it's going to work until we see it on the field. So this article kind of went on to say that, he committed his fair share of penalties. Well, the number was 11, right? And 10 of them were attributed towards passing. So whether it was defensive holding or illegal touching or, pass interference, that was 10, right? 10 out of the 11. So goes on to say that Deshea Townsend had a quote about Terrion, said, "I think anytime you get a chance to have as many reps as he had, it helps you. The only way you can get better is getting a chance to rep." He understands that they were attacking him, and he found out a lot about himself. What do I do best? How can I make those strengths stronger and my weaknesses? What do I do now this offseason to make them better? Just conversing throughout the process before he got back. I think Terrion's going to jump off the page this year. I think that you're going to see, again, the Brad Holmes genius, really shine through here. So, giving this article some more thought, it goes on to say, it doesn't mean that Arnold can't grow into a role. He's already proven to read that he possesses the necessary acumen to play the position and help others suit up at the position in the Lions defense too. Talking about DJ Reed, the Lions prize free agent acquisition this offseason, entering the upcoming season as the team's number one corner. Well, I think that's a given, but where are they going to put Reed on the field? And it doesn't mean that they made a mistake by bringing in Terrion Arnold not to be the number one. I think that what they're doing with Terrion Arnold is exactly how you want to bring a corner up. A young rookie, a young corner in this league. You don't want to just throw him out there to the Wolves, right? Quentin Mitchell, Sauce Gardner, I mean, they had to kind of play in situations. They were given opportunities early. There may not have been other options on the team that were going to give them as good of a situation as putting those guys in right away. Terrion played from day one. We brought in Carlton Davis to be the number one. Why? You bring in a corner and you let that guy suffer through year one, what happens to his confidence? When this guy's going to get, picked on, he's going to have some bad plays. It's part of the game. Not one of you was perfect at your job when you showed up day one, right? There was a growth moment for you, depending on what you do. I mean, if you were an engineer or if you were an architect, maybe you weren't the worst drawer from day one, right? Maybe you weren't, getting your measurements right. Took time. You didn't know everything about, all the different pieces to make a building or a house or whatever, right? Or 3D modeling. Like things take time. Yeah, and when I look at a professional in this type of a space, which is playing football, yeah, I think of high-level positions like a surgeon. Like surgeons take a long time to perfect their craft before they go and operate on a brain, right? It's not like you're going out there day one and doing brain surgery. Absolutely not. That patient is no longer alive, right? Don't even resuscitate because it's pointless. So with this, you have to give these guys an opportunity to grow. You have to give them an opportunity to fail. And then you have to utilize both of those opportunities where they can then turn, their career into what it should be, which is good development, the right development, and growing into the number one corner over time. What happened with Jeff Okudah? Does anybody remember what happened to Jeff Okudah? When he came to this team, he had nobody. Nobody. He didn't have any vets to learn from. He probably had the worst coaching staff in the league. Did not have good support from the cornerbacks coach. And he completely failed. Now, there's two theories here. He was just a bad corner from day one, or he wasn't set up for success. And that is a term that I've used my whole life, right? When I'm teaching guys, When I'm training some of the best salespeople, in the country, I set them up for success. I set them up with failures. I set them up with successes. I give them some easy layups. I give them some, hard things to process that they have to kind of get through and get out on the other side. If I just give everybody the answers to the test, they're not going to be good at what they do. You can't give Terrion all the answers to the test. But if you give him somebody to model his game after, some good veterans to learn from, good habits, practice habits, off-field habits, training habits, rehab habits. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this. The more you learn, the more you know, the better you're going to become. That's exactly why you place a young rookie and now a young corner in his second season around guys that have been doing it for a long time. DJ Reed may not end up being the guy that covers the number one wide receiver all the time. It could be game specific. But having the ability to have two number ones on a team kind of far outweighs a lot of the other teams out there, doesn't it? How many other teams have two number ones on their squad? Not many. Not many, right? It's the same argument as defensive end. How many teams have two defensive ends out there that are Myles Garrett? None. Absolutely none. How many teams have two Aidens? None. There's a reason for that. It's financial. And if you're trying to build a complete team, that would just not be the move that makes sense. So I guess to wrap this up on Terrion, look, I see a huge growth moment for him in year 2. He's surrounded by DJ Reed, who's going to give him some of the keys to the game. He's definitely going to help him, progress in year 2. And that's, again, exactly what I think the Lions are looking to do, is to help him kind of develop, not so much a little bit slower, but I would say more organized, right? Brad is giving him guys that he can learn from, and at the same time, giving the team 2 number 1 opportunities in case someone does get injured. You've got another guy that can pick up. We haven't even spoken about Ennis Rakestraw yet, right? Or any of the other guys that are on this roster. This roster is so deep right now in the DB room, it is going to be hard to cut some of these guys. And hopefully some of these vets will come back to stick around on the vet squad. That would be probably the biggest, most important thing that can happen, is the vets on the defensive line and in the cornerback room will stick around. We hope, right? Because we know not everyone's going to make it. But to have that assurity and to give them an opportunity to be on the team that should contend this season, it's beneficial for both, for both involved. So Terrion Arnold, look, I think this is a simple argument. He was a rookie last year. He only gave up 4 touchdowns. He was targeted almost 100 times. When you got to the red zone, he was one of the best red zone defenders out there. Matter of fact, let me get some red zone grades. Each game, better than others. I mean, he had a couple really bad games against Buffalo, who didn't, right? Minnesota in week 7, not a good game in the red zone, but he didn't even give up a touchdown in that game, right? Seahawks, bad red zone grade, no touchdowns. So the question that I have, without looking at the tape right at this moment, is why does he have such a bad red zone grade in some of these games if he's not giving up TDs, he's not giving up a bunch of completions, he's not giving up a bunch of first downs? Oh, I totally forgot to turn off that phone, didn't I? So, hold on here. There we go. Why is this thing stuck? Okay. 4 TDs. Where was I? I was saying he had 4 TDs, pass breakups. He had 9 last year. That's a pretty solid number. But more importantly, I wanted to talk about the injuries with Terrion Arnold and the rest of the team, right? So Terrion stayed fairly healthy last year. He had one scare. I think he missed maybe the first couple of snaps in a game, and I can't remember exactly which game it was, but he was held out from starting, but then he came in. But the defense injuries overall is definitely going to impact how Terrion Arnold plays. If you're missing your defensive line, Aiden Hutchinson, Malcolm Rodriguez is down, Derek Barnes is out, Alex Anzalone at one point. I mean, you just go down the line, right? Ali McNeil, the last 4 games of the season or whatever. All of those injuries are going to impact what the defensive back room does and how they play. The scheme that Aaron Glenn put these guys in, right? It was like all or nothing. They were giving up all of these pass plays underneath. They were playing in a man zone defense where, some guys were in man, some were in zone, and they were giving up just about everything underneath the middle. Depending on where that player is catching the ball, what side of the hash is going to be the responsibility of somebody. And it just seemed like, Terrion got his fair share. But if you're putting these guys in a position to lose, right, intentionally, you're giving up things underneath so maybe you can attack the run game. You just didn't have enough in the middle. I mean, the linebackers is where we were really weak last year. And I think it continued throughout the season. When I look at Terrion's, tackling grades, off the charts good. He finished with a 76.3. It was his best grade out of the entire season. But it was off the charts good. He's probably one of the best pure tacklers in the game. Week 1 against LA, you want to talk about being targeted. He was targeted 10 times in that game. If you don't think that Matthew Stafford knew what he was doing, he did. But the very next week, Baker Mayfield only targeted him 3 times. Now, through the first few weeks, yeah, he was allowing some receptions. But as the season waned, man, he was buckling down and getting better week after week after week. So my overall outlook for Terrion Arnold this year is I think that we're going to see a guy grow immensely. I think that he's going to have an incredible season. I really do. Yeah, Luke, that's a good point. He says Rakestraw barely been seen on the field yet. And from reporting last year, he was actually going to start over Amik. So the jury is still out on him just because he didn't get on the field yet. That's a good point. And the fact that, Dan Campbell was going to put him out there, it does speak volumes. But now that we've seen what Amik Robertson can do, I don't know how you could put Rakestraw in over Amik. I really don't. That would make zero sense to me. Amik is a very good football player. And I think what he did last season, holding it down big time, was exactly what we needed. So to wrap up Terrion Arnold, I think that this is going to be a season to watch what he can do. When I'm looking at some of the grades last year for these top guys, like Cooper DeJean was the number 1 guy overall. He didn't give up any touchdowns. He had a really good season, but look at the defense that surrounded him. Look at the defense that was healthy, right? Their interior on that defensive line was getting after the quarterback. And when you're getting after the quarterback and causing pressure quickly, wasn't even really coming from the outside. You're getting to the quarterback through the interior. That takes a ton of pressure off of these guys. But he was surrounded by good football players. Terrion Arnold was not. I mean, this team is still building, number 1. Number 2, half the guys were in the box, right? Season done. Pat Surtain was number 2 overall. I wonder how many touchdowns he gave up. Gave up 1, according to just a quick search without verifying. Garrett Williams from the Arizona Cardinals was number 3. Trent McDuffie was number 4. Derek Stingley, number 5. Christian Benford, number 6 from Buffalo. Marlon Humphrey, number 7. Quinnen Mitchell, number 8. Andrew Phillips, who I really liked Andrew Phillips when he was coming out, that 24 rookie class, number 9. And then Jalen Ramsey, number 10, which, Jalen Ramsey's not going to end up back in Miami. He wants out. And no, he's not coming to Detroit. There's no room. No room, no cash. So, Jay Cruzen says it's the Terrion Arnold year. Be careful. Yeah, I would agree. I would absolutely agree. Okay, now the next topic of the day. Jared Goff. So if I were to tell you that there was a quarterback to kind of keep your eyes on, and will Brad, make a play for a quarterback, knowing that we have Hendon Hooker, what would you think? Do you think that Brad would go after a quarterback in next year's draft? I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about a player that, in my opinion, kind of reminds me of Josh Allen. And we're going to take an early look at him and kind of get an idea where he fits. Does he fit in Detroit? Where is he going to be taken in the draft? Not sure yet. It's way too early. But I'm going to come back to that. Because I want to talk about Calvin Johnson for just a moment. Now, Calvin Johnson, the other day, a couple of days ago, actually, 2 days ago, had something to say on Frank Ragnow and the injury. And the quote, which was a really good quote, it's something that I also live by, is you never know what a guy is feeling on the inside. And the reason why this is an important quote to me is when you are dealing with people every day in life, you have no idea what they're going through, right? I was watching a movie last night trying to wind down. It was called Straw. Just happened to pop up, turned it on, watched maybe the first, 35, 40 minutes of it. And it was about, and I can't remember the main actor's name, but single mom, has a daughter that has some health issues, living in the slums or the projects of a certain area. Not sure what area it was. Might have been L.A. And just having a tough day, right? Behind on rent, has an eviction notice, drops her daughter off at school. And it just kind of snowballed. Like she's late to work, boss is jumping down her throat. And then, a person's trying to buy things that they can't buy with their EBT card, and she tells them that they can't buy it. And dude takes a bottle and cracks it over the side of the cash register at a store, right? Like a Meijer. And so it's snowballing, right? You can kind of get the idea. Straw, meaning last straw. Well, then she gets a call from school and she's got to go handle something with her daughter. Well, when she dropped her daughter off, the teacher told her daughter in front of the entire class, your mom is poor, tell her to give us $40 so you can stop eating the free reduced lunch. Hey, a lot of people go through that stuff, right? That's why these programs exist. But embarrassing your child, she probably felt a certain way, promised her daughter she'd get that money. She's trying to get her paycheck. That was payday. She's got to pay her rent that day. So she gets a call, goes up to her boss. I mean, the store is loaded. It's the first of the month, so everyone's there trying to get, their groceries and whatnot. And it just kept on snowballing. Boss is yelling at her, and finally, she's like, look, I got to go. So she tries to go to the bank to get $40. She couldn't get her check yet. It was saying, NSF, no funds. And it's because, if you cash out the last bit of your money, it would close the account. So she tried to close the account. Banker tells her to stand at the back of the line. Keep on. That snowball just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Finally, I'll just fast forward. She shows up to the school and CPS is taking her daughter. For whatever reason. And they were saying because she looked dirty, which she wasn't. She just had a bath that morning. And the short story here, the long of the short story is she ends up getting robbed when she gets back to work. Gets the pew pew thing from the guy that's doing the robbing, ends up taking him out, And then her boss was still being a jerk, thinking that she set it all up, takes him out, and she didn't mean any of it, right? She was just, that snowball just got bigger and bigger and bigger. She finally broke. So when I seen this by Calvin Johnson, and then I'm watching this last night, I'm thinking, man, you never know what a guy is feeling on the inside. You really never know. Because on the inside, that lady was so up against it. She had the weight of 10 worlds on her shoulders, just trying to provide for her daughter. And she finally snapped. But didn't mean to, you know. Kind of won, you know, against the guys that were, you know, trying to rob the store, but then it snowballed from there. So you never know what a guy is feeling on the inside, and I love it. I'm glad that Calvin Johnson brought this to light because, you know, Ragnow is known as one of the best centers in the league. He started in all 96 regular season and 4 playoff games that he played. It's pretty incredible. You want to talk about an Iron Man, he's an Iron Man. Even though he had multiple injuries, he still came to work every day, right? He still showed up, decided to retire at the 9-year mark, which I kind of feel bad for him because, well, for many reasons, but that 10-year mark, man, it's a mark that a lot of football players want to get to. But he beat the odds, right? He was able to play more than 3 seasons, which is the average. And Calvin Johnson kind of mentioned that. He said, you know, some guys might play 15 years. Some guys may play 10. But some of those guys that play 15 might have missed a couple of years with injury. It's just an amount of time and effort. And you never know what kind of injuries a guy's dealing with. And then he says, and that's usually why a lot of guys stop playing. Because of injuries and wanting to preserve their health. You never know what a guy's feeling on the inside. And only he knows that. And the way we are groomed, and, you know, we were never really open about those things. Now there's an environment of athletes being more and more open about their injuries and what they're dealing with. And what Calvin is saying there, like, we're groomed, you know, to not talk about these things. It's, as men, we're always kind of told or groomed, I guess is the better word, to not show our feelings, right? To not talk about our feelings, to not say that we have a weakness, to not give off any weakness. And talking about your injuries could be perceived as weak. And that's why a lot of guys just clam up and don't say anything. And I think that he's right, that, you know, it's good to talk about things. There's nothing wrong with it. We're all human. In matter of fact, I think you'd be a better person for it if you're able to talk about some of the things that you're dealing with, and it might even help you get over some of the things that you're dealing with. So this article by the Detroit News, it was Cameron Goodwill, is a good highlight in talking about, you know, Frank's retirement and really kind of what happens, you know, to these guys. And, you know, Frank's been dealing with it. You know, a couple years ago after the NFC Championship game, man, I thought that was it for Frank. A lot of us did. And I said that season that after 2 weeks later, he comes back and says he's going to play. I'm like, this is it. This is the last season for him. If we win the Super Bowl, he's done. That's exactly what I said. If we win it, he's done. But you know what? We didn't win it, but he was still done. It was too much. And I respect the hell out of him for what he put forth. And all of the pain that he's going to deal with now and forever for the rest of his life. He's going to have some issues. But I think that Calvin kind of putting a little bit of a bow on this for him and saying that it's okay. You know, like it's more respect to you, understanding that your family is more important, right? Your future is more important. You've got plenty of money, right? You've done just about everything you can in your career except win the big one. What's more important? Another year and probably another lifelong injury, or just preserve what you have left? Johnson went on to say that you've got to develop good muscle memory, and it's easy to raise those good feelings. I mean, no matter how good you are, you can go out and have a day like you've never played before, and then you go out and play great the next day. That's what's so great about this game. It challenges you at so many different levels because there's so many different aspects to it. I think that's why so many athletes love playing golf after retirement because of the challenge. So he's talking about golf here and how it's there's kind of a meaning. There's kind of a similar meaning with golf and football, right? Some days you go out, you can smack the hell out of the ball. You're on point with everything. I miss playing golf. I was pretty good in my day. And then there's days that you just can't get off the tee. And you get off hole one, you can't get off the tee, and it just derails from there. So it's a good little quote, and I think that you can tie all this back to, some days you can feel good about where you are in life, and then some days, man, the tracks just fall off. Talk about it, right? Don't bottle it all up. Talk about it. All right, let's see what's next. Already at 8:46. Probably got another 15 minutes in me today. I've got a jam-packed day, so let me get into Jared Goff and this next guy. But before I do that, I want to get into some of the chat here. Yeah, I don't have the chat in my normal spot today, so I can't see half the stuff that you guys are talking about. Let me try to get it open over here. What was the question, Trace? There's a question in there by Roger. Which boxes are we talking about, Roger? You talk about the coffee? So you must have missed the update. And I think I put it in the members only chat in the posts. We did not get coffee last month, so the beans are not available. They did not make it. Prices went up. Tariffs hit it. Tariffs didn't hit it. Tariffs hit it. Tariffs didn't hit it. So I can't get my hands on the beans to make the coffee. So we're going to try to do something different. And hopefully, like I said, I'm still working on it. So I owe for last month's beans, but hopefully by the end of this week, I'll have an answer. And then if I do, we'll get a couple of months sent out. Get you guys caught up for last month and this month. Well, this month's not due till the end of the month, but you get what I'm saying. So yeah, check out the posts in the members only post. That's where you can see it. It's good to see that Eric got his flashlights though, because he was having kind of the same issue, but that's a much bigger issue. Trying to get flashlights out of China. All right, I'm going to move on. I don't see really any other questions about the last segment there. Okay, actually, before I get into Jared Goff, I want to get into something that I'm glad the Lions are not dealing with. And I mean, I guess we are. We are, but we are not. Talking about Terrion Arnold a little bit, earlier, there's one thing that I wanted to mention, and it was a Dan Campbell quote. And I think I'm going to start doing a Dan Campbell quote of the day. I used to. I had a board. We would talk about all the topics of the day, and then we would do a quote of the day. But he says, you get used to eating filet, but you forget what it was like when you had nothing and you ate your effing molded bread. Remember what we used to have in the DB room? And now look what we have, which is, it is a plethora of riches. Like this team is so deep in so many different areas. We don't have any molded bread laying around anywhere. It's a pretty deep team. So when I see people getting on Terrion Arnold or getting on anybody on this team, just remember where we were 5 years ago. Not in a good spot, right? Be thankful for what you have. And to all those fans who keep the faith, right? Well, where we started today's show with that image of Dan Campbell, you deserve this. To the doubters, stay off our train. It's too late for you. And I would say that about some channels out there, that all they do is talk shit about the Lions. All they do is talk, negatively about the defensive ends. And they're just doubters, man. They're same old Lions fans. That's what they are. The same old Lions fans. They're just negative. Stay off the train. You don't deserve it. You don't even deserve to be called a fan, in my opinion. When all you do is start shit, talk shit, and probably are. So, Jared Goff, man, let me get into this one. Article came out by Colton Pouncey where he kind of mentioned 42 different conversations about players on the team. Chemo and Crypto. Hey, man, appreciate that. Appreciate the $1.99 super chat. He says, Super Bowl year, baby. Yeah. All right. Appreciate the donation. 42 different things that he was talking about with the Detroit Lions football players, and I snagged 2 of them because I wanted to talk about Jared Goff and the future of this team, and do we think that there's even an opportunity that Brad is already looking to the future of the next quarterback? I would say the answer is yes. I don't think that there's too much that gets past Brad Holmes. So he says that QB1 is motivated more now than ever to win a Super Bowl. Quarterbacks coach Mark Brunell said it's the only thing that drives a veteran signal caller. Having accomplished a number of individual feats during his career, including a top 5 MVP finish last season, it's easy to tie Goff's success to big-name play callers like Sean McVay and Ben Johnson, but it's time to give Goff his flowers, something that I've been saying for a long time. Goff is 30 years old at an age where quarterbacks have seen everything this league has to offer, and that he's playing the best football of his life as he's aged is no coincidence. He continues to produce at a high level, and another year of this play under John Morton should quiet the critics who believe that his success is coordinator driven. So let me just ask you that question. How many of you believe that Jared Goff's play is tied to Ben Johnson? So that's my first question of the day. How many believe that Jared Goff's play, well, it's not my first question, but my first question on this, is tied to Ben Johnson? Did he have his success the last couple of seasons only because of Ben Johnson? I would say absolutely not, personally. Maureen says Benedict never threw one pass. Good point. Hey, Big Walt just received a membership by Ornery U of M Dad. Hey, big shout out to you, U of M Dad. Trey says, I do not believe that it's tied to Benny. Brian LaBouffe says, good morning, all. Why can't it be Ben Johnson's success is tied to the wager of Goff's golf played? Maybe the way to the way Goff played is probably what he meant there. I think it's a good point. I think it's a great point. Matter of fact, that ties with the same point that Maureen made. It's Goff is out there slinging the rock. Ben's not. Ben was too much about Ben, says Bill Rowland. Derek Lewis says to some extent, maybe 10%. All right, let's do the percentage game for a moment. Put a percent on it. Goff and Ben, what percent would you give Jared Goff's success? More than 10% to Ben Johnson, and he was responsible, or his responsibility of his success? Is it more than 20%, 30%? I'm going to be realistic, okay? I'm going to be realistic. And I know this to be true that, this is Dan Campbell offense, right? Dan Campbell built a lot of this offense. Ben Johnson also helped manufacture and rebuild and incorporate, some of the things that he knew into this offense. If I were to just take a guess without having a conversation with Dan Campbell, I would say 50% of this offense was Dan Campbell. 25% of this offense was Ben Johnson, or I'll go 35 was Ben Johnson. And probably the rest of it would lie on Jared Goff as far as designing plays. But in reverse theory, I would say more than 75% of this offense was tailored and built around the team and Jared Goff. So you can use those numbers any which way you want. I'll say this. Jared Goff, in my opinion, is probably 75% responsible for how this offense ran. 100% on the field, but 75% for the success that it had. Because without Jared Goff, the offense doesn't do what it does. And you can't say that another quarterback put in that position would have the same success. But I'll give Ben his flowers of 25% because his creativity, right? Knowing when to call a play. Now, he definitely had some turd moments where he completely blew the game, especially against Washington. But I'll give him 25% for his creativity in knowing when to, how to manage a game, right? But Dan Campbell's involved in all that too. It just happened so quick during the game. What is Booner? What did you give him? How much percent do you give Ben? He says Ben deserves some credit for Jared Goff having an MVP season, but Ben isn't the sole reason. But you have to give Ben Johnson his credit. I gave him 25%. I'll give him 25%. That's about it for me. Let's see. Attila says Ben Johnson was wearing thin in the locker room. Source Attila Hardy. That's funny. That's funny. Trey says maybe, or Brandy says 4.8%. Booner goes 50 to Ben, 25 to Goff, 25 to Dan. See, I would flip those. So you did the exact opposite of what I said. I would flip those. I went 50 Dan, 25. But I don't know. I think it's a good conversation. So let's talk about this replacement that we see, or I see, as a potential coming down the pike for Jared Goff. Only if Brad is even considering bringing in a quarterback next year to help groom, and if this guy even comes out. But before that, Hendon Hooker. It's year 3 for Hendon Hooker. It's time for him to establish himself, as the clear-cut number 2. I know that there's been conversation among Lions fans that they think, with the addition of Allen this year, that maybe Hendon Hooker is not the number 2. I'll say definitively, Hendon Hooker is the number 2. Until somebody unseats him, he's the number 2. I don't think that Dan is going to waste, or Brad is going to waste the amount of time that they've invested in Hendon Hooker and just let, Allen come in and beat him out. If Allen beats him out, he beats him out. I don't think that Dan Campbell's going to pull any punches there. Whoever the better football player is going to play. Right? They're going to be on the depth chart. Is it a season that we see 3 quarterbacks? Probably not. Probably not. Especially given the fact that you could have an emergency quarterback that doesn't really take up a roster spot, on game day. So it's time for him to establish whether he's number 2 or not. I'm not worried about his age. Aaron Rodgers is playing at 62 years old. I'm not worried about Hendon Hooker being 26, 25, 27, however old he is now. I don't remember. You could certainly understand the fact that, coming off of an ACL injury, that Hendon Hooker is still, he's still getting into the game, right? I think that this is the year, though, just like we were talking about Terrion and Arnold, into year 2, you're going to have a big growth moment. This is going to be the biggest growth moment for Hendon Hooker. It's either going to click or it's not in year 3. And that's, a throwaway season after an ACL. It's learning what was really your rookie season last year. This is the season that it has to click. And it has to click for Hendon, at a big time level. So Lions plucked Teddy Bridgewater out of retirement. I called it when it happened. I called it the day that he went in the game. It was experience. It was having that experience. Teddy's been there before, right? Hendon has not. The Lions did not want to take any sort of a chance at something being too big for Hendon in that moment, and Bridgewater was the call. It was the right call. And it was only a few plays. All right, it was only a couple of plays. This offseason, like I said, they brought in Kyle Allen to compete with Hendon Hooker for the number 2 spot. This game just seemed a bit too fast for Hooker last year at times. and he was holding on to some balls in 7-on-7s and team periods instead of throwing them, he's gonna have to release the ball. That is one thing that he does way too often is hold the ball. I don't want to see him patting the ball this year at all. I want it to be up and out, quick release. So it's go time for Hendon Hooker, which brings me to the guy. This will end up being a video later, but to the guy that I believe could be a perfect fit in Detroit. It just depends on when he comes out. And he could come out, next season. So let me get some things set up here so I can talk about him. Okay, so I'm expecting that Drew Aller is going to come out this season because he's a senior. Doubtful, very, very doubtful that this guy is going to stick around at Penn State for another season. Now, in 2022, first let me mention this, 6'5", 238 pounds. The guy is massive. He has a rocket launcher for an arm. I mean, he has a really live arm, big arm. In 2022, he had 60 pass attempts as a backup. In 23, he threw a 60% completion rate, 25 TDs to 2 interceptions. Last year, 66.5 completions, 24 TDs to 8 interceptions. Great season. Penn State also relied on the run game. When you look at, the player grades, if you were to grade this guy, 1 being the best, 5 obviously being not the best. He's a 1.5 on mental makeup. He's a 2.5 on accuracy. He's a 1 on release and arm strength. I mean, it just doesn't get much better than what he has. And the way that he can layer the football and be able to float that football at times, it's the exact opposite of what Matthew Stafford did when he came in out of college. Matt was just throwing darts everywhere, right? And 105 mile an hour fastballs that nobody could catch or wanted to catch. Look at Calvin's fingers. It wasn't until later in life that Matthew Stafford finally started to develop that layering effect and being able to float and guide the ball. Aller has it. Not only does he have the 105 mile an hour fastball, but he's able to layer and drop that football where it needs to be. So accuracy just needs a little bit more work. Pocket mobility, though, he's a 4. He's Jared Goff, right? He doesn't have the mobility that some football fans are looking for. But if you're looking for a quarterback that you can plug and play, insert day one into the offensive scheme that you already have developed, Drew Aller is that guy. He's the guy that can step in and be the next quarterback of the future for the Detroit Lions. His skills and abilities, I think, are immense. And if you watched any of the, championship games from last season, you would see that Drew Aller had command of that offense at all times. He displays a commanding presence in the pocket, easily scans the field, executing full field reads, quick decision-making. He processes and he progresses through the options, demonstrates a very strong football IQ. He's effective at protecting the football. Just 8 interceptions and 3 fumbles in 16 starts in 2024. I'm not a big fan of the fumbles. Something he's going to have to clean up. But then again, he's still young, right? I mean, yeah, he's a senior, but he's still young. He avoids low percentage throws, which I think is a skill and a trait that not a whole lot of quarterbacks possess. Sometimes they like to really dial it in there, and oftentimes you're going to miss your mark because it's a low percentage throw. You probably shouldn't throw it. So the fact that he's doing that now means he's probably not going to make big mistakes at the next level. If he is reserved on throwing the ball in a danger zone in college, at the NFL, he's definitely not going to do that. However, it could go the opposite way. He could start holding and patting the ball, which I've never seen him do yet. His mental makeup, like I said, I gave him a 1.5. Exceptional pocket presence, scans the entire field effectively, like I said, quick decision-making, protecting the football. Great job. Accuracy, I gave him a 3, or 2.5, excuse me. From the pocket, impressive accuracy, especially on in-cutting routes and crossers, which, what do the Lions do? In-cutting routes and crossers. Very smooth throwing motion, allows him to deliver the football with precision. layering it over defenders, and leading receivers into open spaces. If there's one thing that I love about Jared Goff at times, it's the way that he does lead, the guys open, right? The way that he leads the receivers open. And then there's times we see Jared Goff putting the ball in a position like it's at the back hip. And that's just not a good position to be in. But if you go back and watch some of those plays over again, you'll see that there was a defender that was maybe in view of where that ball needed to go to get out in front of the receiver. So Jared threw it in a place that only the receiver could get it or nobody could get it. And sometimes those balls are dropped. Sometimes those balls are just a few inches off target and they hit the dirt. And then Jared Goff gets, read the riot act by fans. It's a terrible pass. Go back and watch the tape. More importantly, try to get it from all angles, which you don't get, I don't get, nobody gets other than the NFL. You have to look at all of the different angles and see who's in the way. The only way you can really do that is with the all-22 tape, and that even in itself has its flaws, but you can kind of get a good idea of who's in the way. But Aller, very high, highly accurate on throws that he targets directly in front or moving, towards him. Excellent anticipation and spot placement, particularly on the in-cutting routes and the crossers, like I mentioned above. His accuracy diminishes significantly, though, when he's on the move. This is one part of his game that does concern me, but then again, inside the Detroit Lions offense, quarterbacks are not asked to move a whole lot, and they're not asked to throw on the move unless they're doing a rollout, a naked boot, something that we've seen Jared Goff do a few times. That's about the only time that the Lions are asking their quarterback to move. And even then, it's to roll out, get into position, set up, and throw. These guys aren't throwing on the move. So I'm less concerned, like I said, and more importantly, that's by design. We don't need a Lamar Jackson to run every offense. You just don't. You need guys that can put the ball where it belongs, that can read a defense, and that's what Drew Aller does. He's still young. He still has good speed, but he doesn't use his mobility enough. And I assume that some of that stuff could get better as you progress through the next levels. Teams are going to ask you to do things a little bit differently. And right now, Penn State is not. So natural ability, I think, to layer throws, which, in my opinion, is probably the best part of his game. It really accentuates how accurate he is, how he sees the field, utilizes, the change up versus the speed ball all the time, and can identify it early in the process of what he needs to do with that football. Really fun to watch. Release and arm strength. I think that he possesses probably one of the most fluid arm motions that I've seen in a quarterback in a long time. He generates very impressive velocity on his passes. And then, like I said, he's able to, draw that back a little bit, kind of hitting that fade ball, right? And to use a golf terminology, kind of hitting that fade ball a little bit. He shows the ability to drive the ball with velocity and vertically, and then layer it with some touch, when you're hitting those outside routes. He's capable of driving the ball. I think anywhere down the field, he can hit just about any pass. He demonstrates really good touch. And then we get into pocket mobility. It's not great for Drew Aller, but it was never great, for Jared Goff. Now at Cal, Jared moved around just fine. He wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but he moved around just fine, in his younger days. Drew Aller, like I said, he's expected to stay in the pocket, be protected, find, the right progression, and get the ball out. I know it sounds a lot easier than what it really is. Very good instincts to sense the pressure, right? And then very decisive when he has to tuck the ball and run, or he needs to make a quick pass, or he just gets rid of it, which is another key to his game that is a lot like Jared Goff, where Jared will dirt it, and it looks like it was a pass, but it wasn't. He rarely throws it out of bounds. He'll dirt the ball instead of throwing it out of bounds. Why? Well, it takes more time to turn and throw it out of bounds. So if you didn't know that, now you know. It takes more time to throw that ball out than it does to throw it down and just dirt it somewhere. So some of those passes that you see Goff throwing into the muck it's by design. I guess is the best way I can say it. Now, Drew with his size, 6'5", 238 pounds, very tough runner. Very, very tough to get down. Has an impressive stiff arm. And he picks his running spots wisely. He does lack agility and burst, though, which a lot of quarterbacks do, but he definitely does. He does struggle to evade pressure on extending plays and extending plays. Again, it's something that I'm going to blame on the Penn State offensive scheme right now. I think this will change once he gets integrated into a better offensive line. He's less effective at throwing on the run. A lot of quarterbacks are, and again, the Lions don't ask their quarterbacks to do that. His preseason, prospect status is this simple. His strengths, size, intelligence, toughness, competitiveness, fast processing, and instinctive pocket awareness. Strong throwing mechanics, and a very powerful arm. Little bit of concerns, limited agility and suddenness. May struggle in the NFL without improvement in his footwork, which I think will happen. I think he'll get it. Decline in ball placement when he's forced off of his spot. In other words, when he's going off platform, just about anybody's ball placement suffers a little bit. And I wouldn't say that his is, a wide target that's getting even wider. I think that he's still throwing fairly on spot. I mean, just about as good as anybody else does in that situation. Look, I think that this guy, Drew Aller, I think that he possesses a blend of physical attributes, mental acuity. They really make him an intriguing prospect. And now that we're into the way too early predictions and way too early, 26 draft mock-up and taking a look at players, which I'm going to highlight from time to time throughout the offseason and until we get into the main part of the season, I think that this is a guy to look for. However, I'm expecting for this next season for him to have a really good season, which means it's unlikely that the Lions are going to even take a shot at trying to bring him in. Jared Goff has a big nut to crack next year, almost $70 million in salary. This contract was designed by purpose, meaning the Lions expected to layer their contracts in a way that can give them relief in certain areas and then still be able to add on, to the extensions that they have on this team. Brian Branch, the Jahmyr Gibbs, the Aiden Hutchinson, the Jameson Williams, and others. So will Jared restructure his contract next year? I'm pretty confident he will. Will the Lions really need him to do it? Maybe not. It depends on the focus of the team moving forward. So for me, at some point, we need a Drew Aller on this team. At some point, Jared Goff will have to get replaced. The question is when. And when do you bring somebody in that has the ability, the skills, the size that a guy like this has that you just can't pass up? Someone that you can develop for a couple of seasons. Maybe that's the next Hendon Hooker. Maybe. So we'll see. But this is the guy that I'm thinking of, and this is the size of the quarterback that I'm looking at that is going to replace Jared Goff at some point. The question is just when, right? It's not if, it's when. It's going to happen. So I'm going to finish this segment by asking you a question. How many of you think that Jared Goff is going to finish his most recent contract in Detroit? How many of you think that Jared Goff is going to finish his most recent contract in Detroit? Yeah, Bill Rowland, that's a good statement there. He says, I think that we all overlook how elite Goff is at hitting very tight windows that haven't opened at the time he released the ball. Dude, that is such a powerful statement. Like, a lot of people don't understand that. Booner says there's a reason all of those quarterbacks have MVPs with less weapons than Jared Goff. I love Goff, but that's just what it is. Doesn't mean that he's bad. There's just levels to the quarterback. So I don't know. I mean, that's actually a good topic, Boone. Like that's a good conversation. Breaking down what those teams have versus what Jared Goff has. I would say this, though. If you're going to tell me that Jared didn't deserve the MVP last year, I would say you're wrong. I think that he got clowned because he plays for Detroit. And I think that's always going to be the case. He's never going to win an MVP. Matter of fact, when the Lions win the Super Bowl this year, he probably still wouldn't win an MVP of the Super Bowl. It would probably go to Jahmyr Gibbs or Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Or Aiden Hutchinson, but it wouldn't go to Jared Goff. And I think that's just it is what it is. I think that, the AP is full of clowns, and I think that, the voting system is flawed. You can't tell me that what Jared Goff did last season, and I'm not saying you specifically, Boone, but you can't tell me what Jared did last season was nothing short of amazing. Not many of those quarterbacks listed, if they don't have a defense, they're not able to do anything, right? Unless they're getting the ball back and having more opportunities, I don't think that they can do as much. Yeah, Patty, he throws a lot off platform and he makes some incredible plays. But realistically, I think that he also gets away with a lot. I think that the offensive line gets away with a lot. And there's not a whole lot of calls made against Patty, or there is calls made for him. That's just tape. We've seen it. We've seen it all. I would say that, when your offensive line is holding everybody and Patrick can escape and then go, throw the ball downfield for a touchdown, it should have never happened. But he looks, like this amazing quarterback. And I'm not saying he's not. He's a damn good quarterback. But I think, a lot of his plays should have been called back simply because there's a lot of calls that aren't getting called on the field. And that's, that's something we highlighted last year too. But I'm not going to take anything away from Mahomes. He's had a pretty incredible career. It's just, and no, I wouldn't compare Goff to Mahomes either. But two different styles of quarterback, right? You got a guy that came into the league mobile, athletic, good pocket passer. He's starting to slow down a little bit, right? He's trying not to run as much. And if he does run, he still tries to throw the football downfield. He doesn't try to run it up the gut. He definitely doesn't try to turn the corner. He would rather throw the ball downfield than run it upfield. More and more, we're seeing that. Patty was exposed in the Super Bowl. I like that one. So, Sam Kraut says Brad has stacked this team to three-peat the Super Bowl. How's that for a window? Man, it's a wide open window. The Houston game wiped him out, according to the media. Expand on that, Todd. You mean the Houston game wiped? Oh, you're saying wiped Goff out. Yeah, if you're talking about the MVP conversation, I would say that if anything, that would have raised his MVP voting. Like, how do you throw that many interceptions? Which, by the way, 5 of them were not his fault. If my memory is right, which some days it's not, I want to say that there was a play that J-Mo ran a wrong route on, or was that Laporta that ran a wrong route? There was a play, or was Laporta held? It was defensive interference or holding, past 5 yards, wasn't called, and so the ball was thrown behind him, and it was picked. I would say 2.5 of those picks were probably his fault, maybe 3 at most, right? Giving a half to somebody else for running a bad route. Let's just go with 3. 3 interceptions, yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. But those games happen, right? They just happen. And, the way I would attribute it to, bad throws, yes. Play calling. Like, if Ben's not putting him in a good position and these guys are sniffing out what the Lions are about to do, that's not good. I think that Ben was starting to get figured out. I think that Ben being gone this year was the perfect change that this team needed for us to be able to take it to the next level. But anyway, how many of you think that Jared Goff is going to finish out his contract? And again, I'm not being negative towards Goff. I just think it's a dollars and cents thing. How many of you think that Brad and Dan would be extended again? And I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. I think that Boone highlighted this last night on Crunch Time. But no, I would say that for me, they deserve to be extended again. But I'm not saying that that's the reason. What if they go to another team? I think Dan less likely to go to another team. Brad, I don't think is motivated by money, but I could see him going to another team before Dan would. And Boone, to clarify, I don't know if you saw this in the chat last night, but when you're talking about pressure, and I mentioned hot seat, those are two different takes for me. It was I thought that some of the pressure is artificial, and then talk about Dan never being on a hot seat. I don't think he's anywhere close to sniffing a hot seat. So that was two different takes for me. Ornery Eve, I'm dead. You're hurting my ears. What did I say? Bill Rowland says Goff's contract will get reworked, but he stays in Detroit until it's time to retire. Ooh. All right. I agree, but the media didn't look at it that way from Todd Beedry. Yeah, I would agree, man. That's the problem that I have. You know, matter of fact, I want to bring something in. Let me see if I've got it queued up, because when I started this, you know, going through cancer, right, starting a channel had many different meanings for me. But working myself into the independent media space is something that takes time and something that I've been working on. Getting my NFL credentials, which, I don't know, they're around here somewhere. That took time too, right? And it's a lot of hard work. But there's a reason why I did what I did. And let me see if I've got this queued up somewhere. It was a statement by one of my more favorite actors. And it was definitely during a time in our country, I mean, even currently, that media is not as responsible as they should be, right? When media began in this country, it was supposed to be surrounded by what, you know, my motto is, which is truth, transparency, and honesty. That's just what I believe in. And you know what? Darn it, it's on my laptop. Hold the phone, because I want to do this, and then I got to end it for the day. I'll take questions right now. Any questions you guys have, any topics you guys want to discuss, fire away in the chat while I'm pulling this up. You know, there was another topic that came up yesterday, which I talked about a while ago, and I'm not going to, you know, shout out this media's name because they've stolen some of my titles lately. Like Trouble in Paradise, that was one. And I called them out for it the day that I saw it. But the topic came up between Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. Who would you want now, right? And this, you guys know this. We covered this a couple weeks ago when I said, you know, did the Lions get it right? And did they get it right? You know, what would you do now if the roles are reversed? And I think it's I'm still going to go with what I said from the very beginning. I think the Lions absolutely got it right. And if the roles were reversed, I would still take Jared Goff. As much as I was, you know, appreciative of Matthew Stafford, and I think he's had an incredible career. Yeah, he's amassed a lot of stats, but what did he do for the Lions outside of a lot of stats and, you know, a couple of the really good seasons? He hasn't done anything that Jared Goff has done, not even close. And it wasn't until he left Detroit that he got lucky to win that Super Bowl. And I say lucky because, I mean, Brad Holmes was part of that whole building process for that team, and that team was loaded. They brought in a few more players that year to kind of help get them over the hump, and they did. So it still took a lot of hard work from Jared Goff, or I'm sorry, from Matthew Stafford, but I would still take Jared Goff 1,000 times over 1,000 times right now, even though I like the Matthew Stafford that has grown, if you will, in the last couple of seasons. I think he's grown as a quarterback, which is kind of hard to say. Oh, I thought I downloaded it. I didn't. Gosh darn it. Two more seconds. I'll get this thing loaded up. So you tell me, would you still take Matthew Stafford, or would you take Jared Goff over Matthew Stafford? And will Jared Goff live out his contract in Detroit? What in the world? I just saved it and it's not in here. Ugh. That is weird. Okay. Gotta love technology, man. Some days it works, a lot of days it doesn't. This is a simple network issue where it's supposed to go where I want it to go. Maybe I'm just getting too old. I'm just kidding. All right, that's going to take forever to download now in an email. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to share it, but I just don't get why I can't get it looped up here. All right, well, while I'm working on that, I guess I'll get into one more topic. We spoke about Terrion Arnold. There's another piece of information that I'm going to talk about later on today, and that is the Lions are really blessed right now not to have to go through some of the situations that other teams are going through. And what I mean by that is Shamar Stewart, right? When you look at what's going on with the Cincinnati Bengals, it's kind of a mess. I mean, it really is a mess. The way that they're treating Trey Hendrickson, the Bengals are trying to set a new precedent with Shamar Stewart. And could this all point to even more, why Trey Hendrickson is having trouble? That what I'm about to share, which I can't believe a rookie said this to the ownership and, the coaching staff or whomever he had this conversation with. I honestly can't believe that he said this. But let me just get into it. There's some major problems going on in Cincy with contracts. Number one, we know that Trey Hendrickson has not been able to get a contract. They released Jermaine Pratt, arguably their best linebacker, and he's gone. And then it's Shamar Stewart, who has yet to practice. He has not played. He has not signed his contract. He hasn't had any snaps, during rookie OTAs, nothing. He's there, but he's not playing. He's not really participating. And I found this kind of odd, but then when I dug into it a little bit, and I'm like, well, what's going on here? Why is he not? Why is he not playing? What's the real issue? And it's over contract disputes. This has really got me miffed here. It's like my OneDrive is not working at all. Like at all. That's interesting. Okay. So Shamar Stewart has yet to sign his rookie deal. And here's why. I'm going to try this one more time. Here's what he said. Right? Well, let me start with this. First round picks are given a 4-year contract, right? With a 5th year option to the team. They get a preset salary, a signing bonus that's based on draft position. And then the Bengals' first round pick will present, for practice, but now they're not participating, right? So Shamar Stewart comes to practice, but he's not participating. And it's due to this continued dispute over language in his new contract. You would think that these contracts are so, easy these days because they're guaranteed, for one, and the language is pretty much the same as everybody else. But of course, the Bengals got to do something different, right? They've got to create a problem where a problem doesn't exist. And a source told the Inquirer that the Bengals are trying to set a new precedent with rookie contracts. And it just so happens to be a defensive end, and it happens to be Shamar Stewart this year. And it allows the team to get this, void future guarantees. I don't even understand how that's possible. Again, I don't understand or know all of the nuances of rookie contracts. But if the contracts are largely all guaranteed, no matter what, right? You get a fully guaranteed contract as a rookie. How can they even present voiding future guarantees? If it's already set in stone with rookie language through this, the collective bargaining agreement, how could they make a change to these contracts? That's the first question that I have. And maybe I should dig into it just to be a jerk. So he won't practice with the Bengals until his new contract situation gets resolved. And he's requesting that his contract language mirror the last two Bengals to get first-round picks. The last two Bengals first-round picks, both of which were selected after number 17, which was Amarius Mims in 24, selected with number 18 overall, and Miles Murphy in 23, taken at pick number 28. So they didn't have this added to their contracts. And here is the quote by Shamar Stewart. Now, this blew me away. I can't believe that he said this. But then again, maybe I'm not surprised because these guys are sticking up for themselves. I appreciate that, right? He says this, quote, "I've been doing this for most of my whole life. And then all of a sudden, it's gone over something very simple to fix. It's kind of disappointing." Okay, that was the easy one. Then he says, "I can't say what I really want to say, but it's their contract. They can do what they want with it." Okay. And then he goes, "I thought I would be on the field by now. I'm 100% right. I'm not asking for nothing y'all have never done before. But in y'all's case, y'all just want to win arguments more than winning football games." Like what? So he literally said this. It's quoted. And now it's raised a very big issue. So the reason why I wanted to discuss this is because the Lions aren't dealing with these things. Why are the Lions not dealing with these things? Why do we not have the same troubles that other teams seem to have with rookies, right? Especially, a rookie that could be one of the next great defensive ends. At least that's how I viewed him coming up through the draft process. And we're in a good spot, right? Lions are in a good spot. We're not dealing with these ticky-tacky issues. Yeah, there's a small issue with Alex Anzalone right now. And I'm going to say it's small because you don't see anything blowing up, right? Everything is held inside. There's not a whole bunch of leaks happening everywhere. Alex isn't running to the media talking trash about the Lions. We don't have these problems. We didn't have a problem with Ali McNeil. We didn't have a problem with Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jared Goff or nobody. Everything was handled professionally. And for your rookie to be this outlandish, maybe that's why the Lions didn't move up to go get him. Maybe they seen that Shamar Stewart would, have this type of an attitude. But I'll say it the other way, out of the other side of my mouth, and say, Look, the guy's pissed. He has every right to be mad. He wants to play football. Why are you going to try to void his future guarantees? He hasn't even played a snap yet. You took him at 17 overall. What are you worried about? If you had that many reservations, you shouldn't have drafted him. The Bengals are just, to say it like some of the other people have, cheap. They're just cheap. I mean, they're arguing over a few pennies here, in the grand scheme of things. I'm just going to have to pull this thing up a different way here. Which I didn't want to have to do it because I had it recorded and I had it looking good. But I'm going to bring this in, and I'm going to end the show today on this quote by Denzel Washington. This is kind of how I view media. Whoops, that's not what I was trying to do. My bad. This is how I view media and the responsibilities within media and what, I'm trying to do with my life, trying to do things the right way. I'm definitely not trying to, put out fake news and definitely don't live off of clickbait, which I think we're getting a lot in Detroit. For whatever reason, we've got a ton of clickbait happening. And whether it's clickbait from your normal media sources or it's YouTube sources, it's too much. And again, this is the same thing that's happening, not to get political, and I'm not saying, fake news. No, there's a lot going on out there that is distracting. It is disinformation, misinformation, and it's happening for sports teams of all things. So it's a little troubling to think that's kind of the situation that we're in. And now with AI, oh my God, like we're in some serious trouble. AI is way too good. I mean, you can make people look like they're saying and doing something and it's not them, but it looks so real and there's no way to really tell if it's fake or not. So let me bring in Mr. Denzel Washington because this was a perfect statement. You may agree or disagree, but let's bring it in. Love Denzel, man. One of my favorite actors of all time. Matter of fact, if I get some time today, I like Man Apart is one of my favorite movies. But there's so many good movies. All right, here we go. Let's take a listen.
There's been a lot of buzz about this fake news. You were the subject of a fake news story.
Oh yeah, what'd they say? I was running for president. No, I voted. What'd they say?
You switched your support.
I switched. Yeah.
What do you make of all the fake news and it affects you?
If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed.
So what do you do?
That's the great question. What is the long-term effect of too much information? One of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore. So what a responsibility you all have to tell the truth, not just to be first, but to tell the truth. We live in a society now where it's just first. Who cares? Get it out there. We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it. Sell it. Anything you practice, you'll get good at, including BS. What did they say?
You switched your support.
I switched. Yeah.
What do you make of all the fake news and it affects you?
If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed.
So what do you do?
That's the great question. What is the long-term effect of too much information? One of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore. So what a responsibility you all have to tell the truth, not just to be first, but to tell the truth. We live in a society now where it's just first. Who cares? Get it out there. We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it. Sell it. Anything you practice, you'll get good at, including BS.
So I hope you understood that, the reason why I brought that in is because we lose it. Did we lose signal for some reason? But anyway, he says, it's not even about, telling the truth anymore. It's about being first. Say it, sell it. You know, if you're going to get really good at something, you're going to get good at it, including the BS. And so a lot of what we see out there, you know, whether you want to call it fake news or false reporting, I see a lot of people trying to be first. And within them trying to be first, they're not accurate. And when they're not accurate, maybe they're accidentally misinforming. But at the same time, I'm seeing a lot of stuff that is produced that is just wrong. I mean, from all accounts, it's wrong. It's factually wrong. Or the narratives that are being driven. Like he says, you know, what's the responsibility of the media? To tell the truth. That's what media is supposed to be, whether it's sports, politics, your grandma's sewing class. I don't care what it is. It's supposed to be truth, transparent, and honest. Why is it so hard to go back to that? And why did the train fall off the tracks? Exactly what Denzel just said. Everyone wants to be first. And if you can be first, they don't even care if it's right. They don't care if it's accurate. They just want clicks. They get paid by clicks. If there was a different way to pay these people, maybe there wouldn't be so much misinformation out there. So that's the one thing that you will not get from this channel. If you ever feel that there's anything that is not wholly accurate or right, you just tell us. Call me out on it. We'll fix it. We are human and make mistakes, but I'll tell you right now, we don't do anything by purpose to make to say that something is fake. That's why you have to identify it as an opinion or is it a material fact, and identify it. So that's it for today. And I'm cutting it a little bit short, but I've got a meeting here in a little bit, and supposed to be in Detroit tomorrow, but I'll see if we get that clarified today. And if I am, we'll be off tomorrow. If I'm not, we'll try to be on tomorrow. So you guys have a good day. We will do some videos today. I got to get the videos rolling. And a couple of things that I did today will be videos. But get it out there. Please share it. Please help us like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Go Detroit Lions. Bye-bye.